Hello and welcome back to the Portadown preview show. With a bit of a different lineup this week because I wasn't here last week. Dave's not here this week, but Johnny's the mainstay now because he's been here both weeks on the bounce. So as always, Johnny, how are you keeping?
I'm not too bad.
This week we're delighted to be joined for the second time by Darren Potts from the Pottscast, who is, as you can see, a Crusaders fan, and we shall be previewing the Crusaders game for next week, and we'll also be previewing the Larne game. Darren, how are you keeping?
Thanks for having me on, Neil. It's a pleasure to be back. Obviously, chasing the record that Michael Clark is running away with at the moment, the phenom of the Portadown podcast. I'm doing really, really well. Good win last night for us, 3 points. Hopefully keep us in that chasing pack with top of the league. But other than that, can't complain, apart from having a bit of abuse from a few mouthing Glentoran fans at the weekend. But less said about that, the better.
We don't want to talk about them too much now, do we? Speaking of other things that we don't really want to talk about, we'll get straight into it. Johnny, on Saturday, Portadown were away to Dungannon. Actually, do you know what? Hold that thought before I forget. Don't forget to like and subscribe to We Are Ports TV YouTube channel. And this is going to be available on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. And I've been reminded to say, if you could leave us a wee review on Apple Podcasts, that would be great. If you think it's wick, then don't. But anyway, talking of wick, we had a wick result on Saturday away to Dungannon, and was billed as a must-win game. Unfortunately, Portadown on the end of a 4-2 defeat the Dungannon Swifts. Johnny, try and sum it up, preferably as quickly as you possibly can, so we can move on.
Yeah, real disappointing result, Neil. You know, like we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, Dungannon was one of those fixtures whenever the fixture list comes out at the start of the season that you pinpoint as a potential 3 points. You know, we beat them 4 times last year. So it's one of those games. It's a team within our mini league. So the mini league that we talk about, which is ourselves, Dungannon and Warren Point. So you need to be taking points off those teams. So not to get anything on Saturday, especially after being 2-0 down and getting back into the game at 2-2. Showing that fight and determination character to get back into the game. It's so disappointing then to end up on the wrong end of the 4-2 defeat. I know you referred to it, as a must win. It was a big game. I'm hesitant to call it a game in November a must win. But it's really put us in a difficult position now. That's twice Dungannon have beat us so far this season. Last season, finishing 9th, I thought we overachieved, but it was built on taking points off the teams in and around us, which we're not doing this season. We've took 1 point from 6 out of Carrick, no points out of 6 from the Swifts, and of course we beat 1 point, but we're making life hard for ourselves.
Yeah. Potsy, there's obviously a lot of talk about Dungannon, Dean Shields, and sometimes a lot of people just dismiss Dungannon. They're quite clearly a better team than people give them credit for.
Yeah. Last night, I think a lot of people thought we were going to go down there and win 3 or 4. We won 2. I know we hit the post, but they had a couple of good chances. I thought, from what I've seen and what I've heard, Aidan Wilson was one of the best players on the pitch last night. And when one of your centre backs is the best player on the pitch, or one off the players that the guys and the fans are all talking about, then you have to sit up and take a bit of notice. Dungannon are very good going forward. They're still leaky at the back, and I think that's probably where their Achilles heel is. And there's always one of a team that isn't expected to overly do well or achieve, that always pushes up a little bit. And maybe this year it's Dungannon, but Johnny made a great point. It's November. It's hard to talk about much like must-win games in November. We've seen Coleraine lose the first 2 fixtures and they're sitting second. People get carried away, I think, very, very early. There's still a January transfer window. There's still a lot of players reported down to come back. And yes, Dungannon are a good side and they play a lot of good football. But I wouldn't be overly, I know it sounds harsh, the run you're on, but I wouldn't be getting carried away with the doom and gloom right now if it was me personally. And I lived through an absolutely shocking second half of the season from us last year as well. And I'll admit, I got carried away and thought, is the end near? Is Armageddon upon us? How bad we were. But I just think a bit of calmness. Not even at Christmas yet.
Yeah, No, I echo those sentiments entirely, and I've always said I know wouldn't be too quick to push the panic button. Like, yes, of course, it's disappointing. It's a disappointing result. It's just, I feel like if we got a win, we could kick on, and but it's I think what people forget, the league is it is a difficult league, and there's no games that are easy. And like, people say, oh, like Carrick and Dungannon. Like, I thought the first half we were brilliant against Carrick, and we should have been out of sight. Didn't take our chances, got punished. And then Dungannon there on Saturday, we've been beaten by the better team on the day. And people were targeting them, for 6 points. We've got one. Okay, disappointing. But it's one of them leagues. It's sort of like you think, oh, you're playing against lesser teams, so to speak. But it's not like that, because all the teams in the league are all capable on their day of beating everybody else. So I know Dave always says, we play better against better teams. So we've got 2 games coming up, which are against Larne and Crusaders. So Larne at home, and then Crusaders away. Crusaders are on a good run, but we've obviously got Larne coming up first. We'll talk about Larne first then, Jonny, on Saturday here. The Invermen are coming down to Shamrock Park. Larne, they're obviously going to be looking to bounce back. They had a disappointing result against Coleraine. What's your take going into this game? Because at the start of the season, they beat us 3-2 at Shamrock. Okay, the better team in the first half. The second half, Portadown were brilliant. Dodgy goal at the end, to say the least. Larne got over the line. There's positive takes from the games last season. Would you be confident going into Saturday, or would you be worried that Larne are going to really, really go for broke here on Saturday because they need to bounce back themselves?
I wouldn't be either. I wouldn't be going into confident, but I'm not faithful either. If you look at our results this season, it's our home form where we put in the best performances. We've took points. We've got to draw at Linfield at home. We run Linfield and have run Larne close earlier this season as well. So while not, we'll go in and we'll compete and we'll make it hard for Larne. And we could get a draw. We're more than capable of taking points off Larne. It's one of those games where you just don't know. We've made life difficult for Larne up at Shamrock, even last season up at Inver Park as well. We got to draw up there too. So well, I'm not overly confident. I'm not faithful, and I wouldn't be overly surprised if we got a point on Saturday, to be honest.
Potsy, what do you think of Larne this season? Are they where they should be? Should they be doing a bit better? Give us your take on them thus far. You're obviously in a fight with them at the minute yourselves, because you're quite close, and I would expect you'll want Portadown to win on Saturday.
Yeah, no, of course. Definitely want to Portadown win on Saturday against Larne. They're a team that's in and amongst our group of teams that are, I think everyone in the top 6 fancies a chance at being in and around those top 3 European spots, whether it be the title, whether it be second, whether it be third come the end of the season. I think every single one of those top 6 clubs will think that's our target. It'd be quite interesting to know behind the scenes if every one of those 6 clubs' target is to win the league, because that's where I think it might get a bit different. I think Larne behind the scenes will be demanding a title challenge. I think Larne publicly will be pushing out this is a project, and if we finish a little bit better than last year, that's okay. I think the rest of the league are looking at Larne and being like, no lads, title challenge here, or it's not great for you. But we've beat Larne at Seaview. They've beat us at Inver. Both games are pretty tight. We could have won a bit more at Seaview on the counter attack. We sat in deep. Wouldn't even say deep as in we didn't park a bus, but we certainly let Larne have the ball at Seaview. We restricted him to long shots, and Tuffy had pretty much nothing to do. They were all high, wide, all over the show. Larne from distance, and Larne got frustrated and left gaps in behind. So really, this weekend, especially Shamrock, I wouldn't say I'd be confident, but I wouldn't be worried either. I'll be going into the game going, all the pressure's on Larne. I know other people may disagree with that and say, based on Portadown's recent results, you need to start getting points. Yes, but I think all the pressure's on Larne here. I think they are roughly where they should be. I think they should be fighting for the title. I don't think that if fighting for a European spot is enough for Larne, given the financial investment over the years, but Right now, they are where they are. No titles are won in November. No teams are relegated in November. And I think that's the biggest thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. Jonny, like Potsy said there, Larne, they do give chances to opposition teams, and Portadown were able to exploit that in a couple of games last season. I take it you're hoping for the same again this weekend. Hopefully, Lee Bonus be looking for a goal here and there and stuff,
Yeah, certainly I would agree with Potsy there that, there's not really much pressure on Portadown going into the match. Nobody's expecting Portadown to get the 3 points. And maybe that will do Portadown some favours. Maybe they've been feeling the pressure a wee bit in those games that they've been expected to win. When a game like this with the pressure off, all the pressure on Larne, it could open things up a wee bit. Maybe Portadown will have that wee bit of confidence, maybe that attitude of not the same pressure on them. So, I think with Lee and hopefully Adam Sally up front, together put Larne under a wee bit of pressure and see what happens.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed indeed. Okay, so we'll move on for the Larne game here. And like we said before, we have a weekly feature on the show now. Now, I know you guys talked about Port's Cult Heroes last weekend, and it was actually really enjoyable. Victor Kazul and et cetera, and stuff mentioned. But this week's feature is it's trying to word this in such a way where people don't get offended. But then if they do get offended, I don't really care. It's tongue in cheek, of course, and it's going to be something that over the years has either made you not necessarily dislike the club, but there's something that's happened and it's just like, nah, you just thought mugs or whatever. It's just sort of wind you up a bit or whatever. Something you can hold against the club and a reason you've disliked them. And it can be any reason whatsoever. So we're going to start off in alphabetical order. So I do believe that will be Ballymena United. So Potsy, you can go first. Give us one reason why over the years you have disliked Ballymena.
This is a really weird reason. We always seem to play them, even when we play them the last day of the season, it's never a good day. It's always horrible. Like, you never go down to Ballymena and the sun's splitting the trees and it's a beautiful day out. It's always cold, windy, grey, dull. And that's what I associate with Ballymena. It's cold, grey, wet and dull, to be honest. And that would be my thing with Ballymena. Obviously, you always remember that the game where they beat us 3-0 and cost us the league. I'll actually throw it back because it was Portadown's fault for drawing with us a couple of months previous, but that one always sticks out.
Do you know what? For me, Ballymena, that was the same thing. Portadown have went, in recent years especially, any time we go to Ballymena, we always get beat. It's always flipping freezing and you're miles away from the pitch. It's just something I always associate with Ballymena as well. So I could definitely echo that sentiment. Jonny, what about yourself? Anything with you over the years?
I have literally got the same thing wrote down about the weather. I can never remember going to Ballymena just wearing your shirt. You always have to wrap up like a mummy going to Ballymena, and it could be the middle of August. It's gonna be like sunny the whole way down. You get to the Seven Towers roundabout, and it just seems to just be a grey cloud over Ballymena, and you need to put your coat on. And also remember us throwing away points. Potty was saying there about costing Crusaders the title. I think also remember the early 90s us going down to Ballymena and throwing away points and costing us a league title as well.
Yeah, it just seems to be one of them places that it's just always cold. I remember a game we played Ballymena on Easter Tuesday in 2013, and we got hammered 6 at the showgrounds, and it was.
We were playing an Irish Cup semi-final the next week. Was at it, and Ronnie put out a completely.
Aye.
I think Gary Twig was maybe the only one that played that. Their man played in the Irish Cup semi-final the next weekend.
We got beat 6, and I remember David Cushley scored an absolutely unbelievable goal. But I always remember from that game, like Potsy says, the sun was splitting the trees. This was in April. The sun was splitting the trees, but it was absolutely freezing. And you're like, how is this possible? But then you went home later on that day and it was great. You could walk about in the street, have a nice beer, flip flops on and all, but Ballymena was just absolutely foundering. Always remember that. So, hey ho, what can you do? Next, Carrick Rangers. Johnny, what you got?
Where do you start? I can't remember the last time Portadown won up at Carrick. It just seems to be Portadown's Temple of Doom for the last 5 or 6 years. We just get gubbed most of the time up there, don't we? Like, you know, there's been a couple of 4-1s over the past couple of years. So that's annoys me greatly.
Potsy, anything else?
This is the one I texted you about. Nas was okay to include a chant. I think it sounds awful, like, but I think Amber Army has to be the worst chant in the Irish League, and that's what makes my list.
Okay, fair enough. That wasn't what I was expecting you to go for, to be honest. Like, but
nothing untoward. Just the chant. I think it has to be the most dull chant.
But do you think it maybe doesn't sound great because, and again, no disrespect at all, is because they have like their wee sort of hardcore following, but there's not that many, you know, support wise. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why it doesn't sound particularly good. Whereas if that was being chanted in a ground that had 800-900 people, it would sound completely different.
Yeah, possibly, but you know, I'd put all the blame on Bobo for that. You know, he's probably the worst song chorus commencer in the history of football. You know, let's just harbour the blame on one of our friends just for a bit of fun.
Aye, why not? Blame Bobo. My gripe would be, do you know what? It's something like it's not even. It's something that a lot of them, the Carrick fans, would be really annoyed with, and I can completely see why. Is the top of the bridge, and it's shocking because you'll get people will stand up there and not pay their money to come into the ground, and then at halftime will down they're in. That's the way is shocking. Like,
you see, to bring that up, actually, something about Carrick Rangers in halftime. When we were kids and we were playing for Carrick, and you used to go in, or maybe when I had stopped playing, and I remember going right that year, we won the championship. Whatever, we were that bad, we got relegated. Not like Portadown with an admin error, but we were bad, we got relegated. We went into Taylor's Avenue, and I remember I paid in, and I was with maybe Paul Tompo, who played for the 18s or whatever it was at the time. And I remember going at halftime, they just opened the little wooden fence, and everyone just piles in. And I remember going, here, I get half the money back since they're letting everyone in for free at halftime. That always sticks out too with Carrick.
Shocking. So I just think you're ripping off your own club. I don't think that's not cool. Now, it was different last season because loads of people were standing up there because they couldn't get into the ground. That was different. So myself included, whenever Portadown were playing. But anyhow, hey ho. Right, CA. So after that, we go Cliftonville. Yeah. Right, I'm going to go first for this one. One of the things that used to wind me up about going to Solitude was whenever you were down close to the pitch, instead of actually having a barrier around a pitch or a fence or whatnot, they had that plastic like lining the whole way around it, like plastic wire. And I remember we scored a last minute winner up there. Gary Twigg scored, beat them up there 3-2 on a Friday night. And I was down at the front and we're celebrating, but of course everybody piled down, but then your like face get like stuck on the plastic wire and you're like hanging there and like it's just impaling you and there's nothing you could do. But I've noticed now that they've taken that down, which is a good thing because it's definitely a health and safety hazard. What does it achieve? Because the ball still comes flying through and you could, if you wanted to get on the pitch, just dive through the gap. So yeah, there you go. Johnny?
I don't like the vantage point at Solitude. I hate watching a match from behind the nets because now I know the irony of me saying that as a Portadown supporter when the away fans come to Shamrock Park and the only stand is behind the net. But I hate watching games from behind the net because I don't think you have a great vantage point. We haven't won up at Solitude in about 6-7 years. Haven't scored either in about 6 or 7 years either. And also Cliftonville, I know. Plus Cliftonville robbed us of an Irish Cup final day out in '99 as well. Right at the last knock-ins when they got kicked out on about the Thursday night when everybody was excited and looking forward to an Irish Cup final day out and it wasn't to be. So I think that's maybe enough reasons for Cliftonville, Neil.
I'd say. You're going to be biased here, obviously.
Where do you start, mate? I wrote a book. There's so much to say about Cliftonville, but to put it down to one, just the rivalry with Crusaders. It's bred into you. You don't like them, they don't like you. And I agree with Johnny. The vantage point of Solitude is never great. I've never really, even when you win at Solitude, I've never overly enjoyed the actual match. You enjoy, celebrating towards their group of fans, but certainly the vantage point isn't great. But probably the consistent League Cup final defeats was a frustrating point that really annoyed me with Cliftonville. We lost there a couple of years in a row in the League Cup final against them, 4-1 at Windsor being an absolute hammering as well. But just the rivalry, what I do like though is that, when you're walking into Solitude, that feels a bit like a Russian prison, with the barbed wire over the brick walls and stuff. I always think that's a bit cool, but I don't want to give them too much praise. Signing Colin Coates obviously is another reason for them to be, the number one most hated team in the Irish League from a Crusaders perspective.
I always remember Colin Coates during that penalty shootout at Solitude in that League Cup final, pulling Connor Devlin's beard, and I thought, but then Devlin had the last laugh because Cliftonville won. There you go. Right. So next is Coleraine. Potts, you can go first.
Coleraine was a weird one, and I put it down to a friend, a guy that I know who's a Coleraine fan called Paul, and I seen Paul every week for about 2 months, not even 2 months, probably about 6 weeks, and the build up to the League Cup final in 2011. And he was telling me, Coleraine this, Coleraine that, Coleraine the other thing. We're going to bring 4 fans for every one of your fans. We're going to beat you. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I've never seen Paul again since we beat them in that final. I'm not even joking. I've never seen him. Never, not once. So Paul is the reason that is my anti-Coleraine person. So whenever I see him, he's going to get absolute pelters.
Yeah, fair enough. Johnny?
This is a real boring one. I just hate the drive up the Coleraine. I'm really struggling here, but I just, go down, you're so, half an hour takes you down to Belfast, or 20 minutes to Mornview, Dungannon. You're sort of so close to everywhere. You go to Coleraine, it feels like you're going to the other side of the world, even though it's only, just over an hour or so. Absolutely hate it.
Yeah, it isn't the best drive, to be fair. Like, mine is, do you know what? Like, funny, we were talking about this earlier on, and for different teams, it was just like, it's actually quite hard to pick something, and then something just clicked with me. One gripe about Coleraine, Doc7 on Twitter. That's enough reason to dislike anyone or anything. But he's disappeared because he got outed by Jamie Glacken, which was hilarious. So just some Twitter troll that would always slobber on every team's Twitter. He was there. If Portadown announced the signing, he was there. It's just like, mate, what have you got to do with Portadown? Nothing. Like, if Crusaders announced the signing, he was there. Whatever. But yeah, I thought that was quite funny. Like, here, a gift from Zoom. Run out of time. We've removed the 40-minute timeout in your group meeting. Oh, excellent. Yeah, just that. But that's more of a comedic thing, to be honest. I've no idea who the person is or whatnot, but just because he was always slobbering, there's enough reason for there to be a dislike there. But anyhow, so next is Crusaders. So Johnny, me and you'll answer this one. Potsy won't, but when it gets to Portadown, he can answer, and we'll obviously not answer because there's nothing about our club that we dislike, because we're obviously the best club in the world. Obviously. So Crusaders, Johnny, go first.
I'm really struggling. Really, really struggling with this.
Don't hold back. If it's just because of Potsy,
all right, Johnny. I mean, next year, if you just go to the championship, come on up to CV, get yourself a wee season ticket.
The only thing I can go for here is really successive gubbins again at Seaview. Right, what was it, 4-0 earlier this season? Didn't it end up 4-0? Last year you made us 5-0, wasn't it? So recent memories of being at Seaview has just been getting gubbed, really. 9-0 in the aggregate over the past 2 games. That's really, and that's clutching at straws again. Like, there's nothing overly annoys me about Crusaders, to be honest.
I have a couple of things.
It's supposed to be one.
It's not even something that they've done to put it down or anything like that, but it's just, listen, Potsy, you'll know more about this than me, like, because it's your club, but I just feel there's a couple of Crusaders fans that are biting their nose off to spite in their face, and it doesn't make sense to me because of Joyce Robinson. It's like, I refuse to go watch my team play because they signed a player like that left us a couple. Yes, okay, I can understand being annoyed at what happened and stuff, but it's stupidity and but you'll stand outside the ground and all this nonsense. I just don't get it. I think it's a load of absolute garbage. Like, so what's your feeling on that?
No, I would agree. I don't. If you're not happy with the signing, maybe just don't support the player. You know, if you're that way inclined, you know, I wouldn't be. I'd be very much like, if he's playing for the team, if he's wearing the shirt, you get behind him, and that's it. You know, people have short memories. Vincent Sweeney has played for us. You know, Mickey Collins, who's won leagues with Cliftonville and stuff, has played for us, and people don't get overly up in arms about it. But because of like a very silly thing that Josh did a number of years ago, people want to hold grudges. Wouldn't stop me from supporting the club. To be perfectly honest, I think it's a bit silly.
So yeah, the other reason is that the chips at Crusaders aren't great. No, seriously, they're not. I mean, they go in to get like a gravy chip, and you get hardly any chips, and like you get like a swimming pool of gravy. It's just like, not the nicest.
That's lumpy gravy too.
Well, there you go. You're obviously in agreement. So, right, who's next? It's after C. So obviously D. I'll go first with Dungannon. This is a real random one, and it's silly more than anything because I don't really have. There was a couple of clubs that were just like, there's nothing really I could think of, and then Dungannon, and then back in the day, back in like the mid to late noughties, when obviously the Setanta Cup was running and Portadown Minute, and there was a couple of years Portadown got drawn against Dungannon, and it was just like Dungannon again. It's like, I don't want to play Dungannon. I want to play like teams from down south. Do you know what I mean? It just sort of felt like, and then they played. There was a few times there's a couple of 0-0 draws and all. It's just like, this is boring. Like Monday night, it's absolutely pelting down. I'm away to Dungannon, drawing 0-0. This isn't what the Setanta Cup's about. So just around then, I was just sort of like, oh, this is boring. Just that's it. I don't really think it's a proper reason, but it's just something that stuck with me. Jonny?
Dungannon don't have that many supporters, but in my experience, maybe I've just been unlucky to be close to a few of their supporters, but they're really vocal and they're really mouth during the whole match. Like when we played them earlier on in the season up at Shamrock when they beat us 4-1, there was 3 or 4 of them were in the home stand. They were just a couple in front of us, like, and they just didn't hold back whatsoever. Like they mouthed, they shouted, they done it the whole game. And you know, when you're getting beat 4-1, you don't want a couple of away supporters sitting in front of you giving it stacks the whole match either. Like,
hopefully one day they'll get their come-up spot.
Hopefully.
Potsy?
It was the hardest one. Because when I was writing it down, and when I was first going through them all, because most of it comes quick to you, I just wrote question mark. Like, I don't know. And then I thought about it. It was just like the car parking. That's like that's probably it. Like, there's nothing really overly frustrating about Dungannon other than that, I think.
You can't beat parking your car on a dual carriageway on the hard shoulder. Like, I mean, if you get knocked over by a bus, so be it. Nothing else for it. Right. G, they're next. So it'll be our old friends at Glenavon. So Jonny, I'll let you have the floor first with this one. What winds you up about Glenavon?
It's a bit like what Potsy was saying earlier on with your derby rivals. You're brought up just to despise them, you know. Sort of maybe feeling a wee bit sorry for Glenavon. You know, they haven't seen a league title in colour, I don't think, any of their supporters. So maybe a wee bit more pity. Just it's your rivals from down the road. I think that says it all, really. Just everything, really, then annoys you.
I think you're right. That's pretty much the answer I had as well. There are local rivals that you're just sort of brought up. They hate each other, like, and yeah, was it they always say, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, eh?
Mm-hmm. I know, and especially it annoys me that two of our title winning players from our last title winning season are number one and a coach at Glenavon as well.
I remember a game, but we hammered them at Warmview, and Gary Hamilton scored a hat-trick, and the Glenavon fans were absolutely peltering him in that game. But he was winding them up and all, and doing all this here with a Portadown badge and all, and really, really wind them up. Like, but it's funny how times change. Like, he was a Glenavon fan as a kid, to be fair to him. Like,
I think his family and all brought up Glenavon supporters.
Potsy, anything about Glenavon that's wound you up over the years?
Not overly, bar our record down there, but us don't seem to do very well. You know, the odd game will seem to go down and get a result, and we seem to do not. I know we got beat 1-0 by them at Seaview last year in one of the games, but you know, we beat them 6 at Seaview quite a few times the last number of years. Beat them 7 down at Bourneview in the 14-15 season. But in recent years, it's almost like we get Glenavon. It's like, oh no, here we go, straight to Mount Doom. You know, it's like we just lose. So that's probably the Glenavon factor for me. I don't really have too much hatred for them the way you boys would, but just more so the fact they seem to have something over us in the last number of years, especially down there.
Fair enough. They do have a brilliant ground, to be fair. Like, I'll give them that. Definitely one of the tidiest grounds in the league. Right, Glentoran. I'm going first in this one. Everything about the club. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. No, here, listen. Do you know what? It's funny because on the Portadown Twitter today, we shared a clip from on this day 20 years ago, and we drew 2 each away to Glentoran. And no word of a lie. So we went on to win the league that season, and there was a massive rivalry. But no word of a lie. That was the very day where, for me, Glentoran became the number one hated club for me, like as a fan. Like, they jumped, because I always remember coming out after that game and we were shard and bricks and stones. Like, just because we got a last minute equalizer, like, we walked out and there were bricks and all flying from their side of that street and stuff. I always remember that. And just like, there were all the games that season between Portadown and Glentoran, you know, it was all hell was breaking loose in them, you know, because, you know, the whole Mickey Collins element and stuff, you know, they're both fighting for the league. There was so much going on. There was always red cards, always brilliant games, big crowds. But it just always, that game for me, like, obviously growing up as a Portadown fan, I really disliked Glentoran, of course, but like, it just went to a different level after that. And to this day, it's still the same. You, Potsy, you know, if you ask me what's Irish League club winds you up the most, for me, it's always been Glentoran. It's the game I look forward to more than the rest. Like, so, listen, they're a massive club, of course, but it's a rivalry for me that it just 20 years ago this day for me kicked on to the next level. What about you, Jonny?
Yeah, it's sort of, you know, it's a massive rivalry with Glentoran. I sort of look at it the way a wee bit, you know, while Glenavon's are derby rivals, Glentoran for a good period of 15, 20 years were our real rivals. It's a wee bit like Liverpool and Everton are derby rivals, but it's really Liverpool and Manchester United was the real rivalry, and that's the way I thought it was with Portadown and Glentoran. Funny enough, there's always talk about, you know, that day, the 2-2 that you're talking about back 20 years ago. Was there like, did the police have to get involved at the end of the match? The Portadown players maybe have to stay in the changing room for a wee while, and that wouldn't have been the first time that happened down at the Oval when Portadown played Glentoran. I remember I think we beat Glentoran 6-1 down there, maybe around 93, 94, and I had put the clip on the Twitter earlier on this week as well, and I think there was missiles and stuff raining down at half time. I think Portadown were 4-1 up, and they had to wait either at half time at the end of the match to get down the tunnel. So this, and another thing this annoyed me against Glentoran, which has started to fall victim to this thing, where when somebody scores a goal, they play music straight after the goal scored. I've noticed they've done it. They done it last season. I thought maybe it was because there was empty stadiums, but they've been back doing it this season as well. But this thing of when somebody scores, instead of just letting the natural crowd reaction and noise, you're just bombarded with some sort of dance music for 30 seconds, which greatly annoys me.
Yeah, well, it's another reason to dislike them. Like, but no, it's no. But you know what? I agree with you because, like, there's it for me. For me, Glentoran, like it's just the Port Island Glentoran to me. It was just as a kid growing up. It was like, yes, okay, like when I was really young, I disliked Glentoran, and there was obviously the rivalry, but it just in the early noughties, it just literally went to a different level. It was fascinating, just going to some of those games and some of the stuff that were happening. Like even that game 20 years ago today, we were 2-0 down, we get a 2-all draw. If that had stayed that way, we wouldn't have won the league. It's such fine margins, and
there's some games that same season. I remember beating them 4-3 in the Irish Cup at Shamrock as well. We have 10 men. Was not the one Colin Feeney sort of handled on the line and dislocated his shoulder at the same time or something? And there were some epic battles over those seasons now.
Somebody's busting to get on our podcast here. I can see her in the mirror. Come on, Rick. This is your big chance. Come on in. Come on, say hello. Come on. She's giving it the big one. She's all talk, no action. Yes, the Glentoran rivalry that year just really went to the next level for me, and it just I've always held a grudge since. Like,
I know you're jealous.
Probably not. Right. The aim is to get Kirsty on at some stage, but she's too afraid apparently. But yes, Potsy, what would you think about Glentoran then?
Probably similar to you, but slightly different at the same time. And I'll preface this by saying not all of them, but their fans really bug me. And what I mean by their fans, I don't just mean in general the punters that come in, but Eddie Patterson, I felt, done wonders with the club at that stage, with that level of finances, with everything that was going on. The trophies that he won was 2 Irish Cups, I think, and hounded out of the club. And I was like, what do you boys expect? And then Mick McDermott, he's won an Irish Cup. Yes, granted, he's been mouthing off and doing idiot things but the way fans want to fight him and all, after one of their games, and they're right bang in the middle of the title race. It's like, lads, relax. I don't get it. I just don't get it. And then they give it the whole hoo-ha about Jay Donnelly. And now Jay Donnelly's hero because he's doing really well. Just the fans bug me a little bit. Like I said, not all of them, but when I think Glentoran, I'm just like, fans.
Funny you mention that. Like, listen, football's a really fickle business now, of course, but I remember whenever we were going with them, head to head, for those few years especially, and Roy Coyle was such a successful manager at Glentoran, and he was successful at Linfield and ours as well. But when he was at Glentoran, I remember obviously they won the league in 2005 as well. But then the following season, whenever they hit that bad patch, and I remember Armagh beat them 4-2 at Armagh, and you can actually see the clip on YouTube, and they get beaten. He left after that because he was hounded out because the abuse he was getting was shocking. And we know what Armagh's ground's like, home park. It's just a tiny wee ground and really compact and stuff. And the fans are this much away from it, and he was getting battered. And I always just remember being it's an absolute club hero, and he's just he won the league last season, and he's getting absolute pelters. I just always stuck in my head, and I thought it was a bit unsavory. And yes, okay, it can be the same at any club across the world to get on like that. Of course, people get fed up and disappointed and stuff, but to me, there's a line, and then when you cross it, it's just nah. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. So.
Was there not a case? Was it not up at Seaview where Alan MacDonald had, when he was in charge of Glentoran, had to watch the match from the Crusaders director's box, yes, or had to watch it from somewhere else? He couldn't watch it from the dugout because he was getting that much flack from Glentoran supporters at the time.
That's right, and that was the season they signed Keith Gillespie. Mm-hmm. I think it might actually be Keith Gillespie's first game. I can't remember. I don't know if it's the first game, but he definitely played, and you could actually see Alan sitting up in the like the clubhouse thing, looking out the window, and you're just like, what is going on here? Like,
they were the champions then as well.
yeah, they were.
They'd won the league the season before. This is absolute, to me, that's absolute madness. Like, absolutely, it's just like, well, it's less football's a fickle game, but I agree with you there 100%. So yes, okay, moving on. What about now? Linfield, is that? No, Larne. Larne are next. Potsy, you can go first.
Larne would be very much, it would be the social media side. I just think Larne get carried away. Like, if Duffy Circus had a Twitter, they would appoint the people who run Larne's Twitter page to run it. That's it. That's the gripe with Larne. It's like, oh, look at us. Like, oh, we filled our stadium against Linfield. Hooray, book a bus, get a parade, Main Street, everybody on the street, get your flags out. I just think it's very carried away with the smallest things. I don't know what they're trying to do. They're trying to build up and trying to get everyone involved in the town and all this nonsense. But I think, like, you're making me laugh by laughing. But I think from us being on the outside, supporting our clubs and looking in, you're sort of shaking your head a wee bit and going, come on, lads, a bit of professionalism, a bit of seriousness. I don't know. That's just my take on it.
Jonny, anything to add to that?
I've just found some of their players, the way they acted last season when we beat them up at Shamrock, they were just, there was the attitude from one or two of them, not all of them, but one or two of the players going off the field at the end of the match was like, how dare Portadown beat us? This can't happen. This couldn't possibly happen. And some of them got on a wee bit like spoiled children going off at the end of the game, and really irked me. It made the victory all the sweeter. But just the way they behaved going off the match. I think Larne have to remember too. They haven't won any major trophy. Like, I wouldn't be counting the County Antrim Shield as a major trophy. They're still without a major trophy. So I do sometimes feel they get a wee bit above their station when they haven't achieved anything yet, which would annoy me. But yeah, those would be my gripes with them.
Right. Well, for my list of gripes, page 1. No, listen. I'd agree with those. What I had was, and we'll mention it in one of the earlier podcasts this season when we're playing them, is this notion that, right, do you know what? Getting into Europe for a club is, in the Irish League, of course, is an achievement, right? Of course it is, because at the end of the day, you strive to be in Europe because it gets you the extra money and stuff, which can help propel you into the next level. I get it, right? What I couldn't accept was fans and intermediaries and whatnot basically saying, oh, it's an absolute miracle a wee club like Larne are in Europe. And then that's why I was just like, it's not a miracle that you're in Europe, because with all the money you've spent, you should be in Europe. Like, no question, which brings you back into what Potts was saying earlier on. They should be challenging for the league. So if you're expected to be challenging for a league title, then you should be in Europe. So if you even flip that to the English side of things, say Man United, they're expected to challenge for the title. So of course they should be in Europe. So what's the difference? Do you know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. Yes, of course it's Larne's sort of like progressed, and now they're there in Europe and on. It was just that this myth that it was a miracle, which to me is just absolute nonsense. I'm sorry, but when £5 million being pumped into your club in a handful of years, and you're in the Championship a few years ago with no fans, and suddenly you're on the main street parading because you're in Europe, well, you bloody well should be in Europe. Anyway.
I have to say though, with Larne, there are things that I look on and I'm jealous of them in a way. They remind me a wee bit, well, remind me a big bit, what they're doing now of what Portadown done towards the late 80s and the early 90s when Ted Clark come in, when he owned Golden Cow and pumped the money into Portadown. And I can see Larne doing that, the equivalent of that now, and probably doing a lot of things. suppose they're putting a lot of infrastructure in and building the blocks to keep that going, while we maybe at the time lived for the here and now and didn't put in the building blocks to keep us going for years and years and years, if you know what I mean. But no, they still haven't won anything. Where we had two back-to-back league titles and a league and cup double after a few years of Ted Clark's money. So at least we had something to shout about. We could back it up.
Don't ever compare my club to Larne again, Johnny, or you're never coming back on this show. Jesus
I could see
Christ.
the smoke coming out of your ears there when I was saying that.
Listen, I think they're a good side. And do you know what? Like, I know see, actually, as a kid, like, you know, with Portadown, we're playing Larne. Yes, Larne have done a lot of work to their ground, but to me, that there, I actually liked Inver Park before. Like, it was one of them because it was sort of like an old-fashioned ground, and I'm quite old school that. Like, I like old school grounds, and it was always a wee ground that, you know, I just, because you were close to the pitch and stuff and all, and it was always like I liked it, you know, Inver Park and stuff. But yeah, just what you're saying about getting a bit above your station, it's just like when you start winning leagues or Irish Cups or even League Cups or whatever, then yes, okay, but I'm sorry, just you have to earn the right to be classed as a big club. It just doesn't come overnight. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, we'll move on. Linfield, Johnny, you can go first.
Thing annoys me about Linfield, and it's no fault of their own, is when you go to Windsor and you're just completely lost in the stadium. You know, it's a massive stadium. It holds, I don't know what, 16, 18,000, does it? And you go there for you know, there's no atmosphere. There's no, you know, it's just an empty shell really. Whenever there's an Irish League game going on there, you know, you can't get, if you're a team there, you can't get any atmosphere or anything going because it's so big and so, you know, the attendance at, you know, is so sparse when it's an 18,000 stadium. That's my complaint with Linfield, which is no fault of theirs. Like,
I'd say.
No, I'd agree with that. Like, there is that feeling at Linfield, you know, when you go up there away, even when you have a really, really big game, like when we went up there on New Year's Day 2018, I think it was. You go up there and there's a great crowd of Linfield fans, there's a big crowd of our supporters, and you still felt that you're in like a big empty shell. But my thing with Linfield, and I'll liken it to another team really in England in the 90s, Man United. I just feel like they never go away. You know, even when they're having a bad season, they still kind of pop up and with a cup win or something. And that always used to bug me. I'm like, these lads just keep winning. And it's similar way to United, I suppose, in the 90s. But I always remember Linfield in a weird way. They always gave us false hope. You always felt like you had a chance. A couple of Irish Cup finals in a row, we played the Blues, and you thought, oh, we have a chance, we'll win the cup. I fancy us to win the cup. And they just go up through the gears and leave you in the wayside. Like, see him in the league. I remember us putting the run together when Stuart Dallas was at the club, and we pulled it in within 3 points, and they were coming to Seaview, and we'd won like 10 in a row or something. We were all excited. We're going to beat Linfield, then we'll be top going into the last 2 games or something like that. Robert Garrett scores, Linfield win 1-0. You know, they just had a habit of just pulling out the rug from under your feet. So that would be my Linfield one, to just, they're always there.
My one, do you know what I was going to say about just to annoy me? You know, like I'm sure obviously for Linfield fans, it's not the same getting to a cup final, you know, when you're playing at your home stadium. But it used to be like if you were playing a cup final and you get drawn against if Linfield got the final, you're just like, see, we're literally going to their home ground. It doesn't feel like a cup final then. It just feels like you're playing Linfield again. And that was what I was going to say. And then something you said earlier on, Potsy, about Glentoran fans, and then like we're both from Carrick, right? So Carrick is predominantly a Linfield town. And it's just, I find with a lot of the fan base that are from Carrick, not all, of course, but there's a lot of them that are literally just Linfield bandwagon jumpers for, like, they never ever go. And then Linfield win a cup or whatever, they're giving it the big one. And I'm just like, mate, you haven't went and seen Linfield in about 8 years. What are you talking about? There's a lot of that in Carrick, and it just winds me up. So yeah, I'm going with that one. I was expecting you to elaborate on that, Potsy.
No, I would. I mean, there's not too much to say. You're right. Like there is quite a lot of Linfield fans in Carrick, and a lot of them, I've been the recipient of. Ha, we beat you in the cup final. I'm like, oh, did you go? No. Did you see on TV? Nah. Seen the result though. Go away.
Yeah. No. It's the same. Like actually, well, obviously I've been on the recipient of. It's well, it's one of them things. Like it's funny, like, but I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Right, who's next then? Oh, it's us, isn't it?
Portadown, Neil.
Well, wait, if your answer's you, I'll be quite disappointed here. Like,
No, the Portadown one, I'll always throw it back to a couple of years ago at Shamrock. And like Johnny, I don't particularly like standing behind the net. It's not really my favorite vantage point either. So that's on the list, but that's not the reason. It's when the Portadown chippy van used to serve the home fans from the front and used to serve the away fans through the fence with the woman out the back door. So that one always sticks with me. I've never seen that anywhere else or any other Irish Clean League club, but just the woman hanging out the back door, passing money through the fence, and the Crusaders fans just lining up at a fence. That always struck me and give me a laugh every time you go to Shamrock. Do you want a burger? Yeah, line up at the fence there. The woman will pop through.
yeah, that's a good business strategy, to be fair. Like,
the best of both worlds. You don't need to employ or bring someone in for an away caterer. Just put the home one right close to the away fans as well.
Exactly. Yeah. No, fair enough. I'll give you that one. So who's next? Warren Point. Is that it? If we went through every club already, we have, haven't we?
Yeah. Warren Point are up for crimes against kits, I would assume.
Well, that wasn't what I was going to go for because I mentioned him the other week, but I was going to say just the drive down, I was going to go for Johnny's equivalent of Korean. It's just, so obviously it's further for us to come down, but like when I was a kid and when Uri were in the Premier League, like on a regular basis, and I remember before you had the dual carriageway down, it was just the windy roads down from Belfast down to Newry. And every time you'd be like, God, I feel car sick. It was just horrendous. But it sort of just stuck with me. And then, but if you go to, I know there's a dual carriageway now, but now if you go to Warren Point, you have to come off at Newry and then you go down. So just because of that, I'm just like, but a couple of dodgy kits as well over the years. Like, but yeah, I'm just going for that. Like, for that, I don't really have any other reason. What about you?
Crimes against the kits. That's it. Just always boring kits. I think up until this year they were wearing like teamwork kits, the ones you buy in like JJ or Sports Direct for like amateur clubs would buy the same kits and you stick a badge on it. I just thought that was always very poor.
Fair enough. Johnny?
They used to greatly annoy me with their social media feed. They used to just call the players by their nicknames. And you just had no clue who you would like. Something like 1-0 Dingo has scored. Who's Dingo? I don't know who Dingo is. Give him his full name. Remember all the Hughes brothers and the nicknames for them all, and that's just how they referred on their official club Twitter feed if they were doing score updates or results, just by everybody's nickname. And you're a Premiership club here, and I'm trying to find out who Dingo is, and if he's in my dream. I don't even know who this fella is. He used to really bug me. Last year, they went on a stretch towards the second half of the season. They just wore their away kit for the second half of the season. I'd heard rumoured that somebody had messed up washing their home kit, so they just had to wear their away kit for maybe the final third part of the season. And my last thing bugged me. Last year, because we do the social media stuff, we were able to go to the matches. And I set my phone on the fence and it fell face down onto a brick and smashed after about 10 minutes had gone. And I had no phone the rest of the match. And we won. Ben Tilney scored a cracker. It was all going on. And I was just sitting there going, the only reason I'm here is to update the scores and do the social media feed. My phone's in pieces in my hand here.
Brilliant. Do you know what? This brings me back to Glenavon. You mentioned the kits there, the start of the season, and I walked in and Glenavon are playing in navy blue. And I was just like, why are they playing that? Like, where's their home kit? and it just looked embarrassing. They were clearly wearing a training shirt and then their home shorts and socks. And I was just like, what sort of amateur operations this? It's just like, and now it's officially listed as their third kit. And it's like, get in the bin. You
Their
screwed
home
up
kit,
there.
they didn't get their home. Their home kit didn't arrive in time for the start of the season, and they had to then get their training kit printed up. I don't think some of their supporters would have been happy if they'd kept their training kit compared to their white home kit that they ended up with.
But but would you not have just to save face have wore your home kit from last season and nobody would have batted an eyelid? Nobody would have batted an eyelid.
I think they do the same scheme as us, the sponsored jerseys, and they'd probably then had give their home kit to the sponsors then, and then we're left with no alternative.
No, but like you still have, like, sure, look at this season in the Mid-Ulster Cup, with the kids playing and stuff, or like not even necessarily in the Mid-Ulster Cup, but even like in the reserve games and stuff. A lot of the games were, a lot of the teams do that. They were last season's home kit. So, to me, I just walked in and I saw it and I was just like, what is going on here? Even if they had wore, I think it wouldn't have looked as bad had they wore if they had wore navy blue socks with it and at the seat matching their actual shirt, because they wore navy blue, white, royal blue. It just looked like an absolute calamity had taken place, which it had, but you could have got away with it had it been a different color of socks and shorts.
I still try to blank out the season where we started in Deodora.
Oh,
then a third of the way into the season had Deodora tops, Adidas shorts, and then progressed fully to Adidas for the final third of the season.
06, 07. Remember that? That was a disaster. But anyway, well, there we go. That'll wrap up our weekly feature. And it was on reasons to dislike other clubs over the years. Nobody should take it personally. It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of crack. And if you get offended, I don't care. So let's move on. Next week, we play Crusaders following the Larne game. As you said, Johnny, we were there earlier in the season, got beat 4-0, and we got hammered there 5 last season. It hasn't been a happy hunting ground for Portadown in years. As Potsy always mentions on his podcast with Crusaders players, the story about beating Portadown 6 when Barry Malloy had a wonder game, it sticks to mind. So what are you expecting next Tuesday then?
I really don't know, to be honest. Probably going up, not expecting too much. As I say, we've been really put to the sword the past 2 times we visited Seaview. So I just want to go up there and see us make a game of it to compete and make life difficult for Crusaders. Like I say, I'm not expecting anything, all truth be told, but I just want to come away at the 90 minutes with Crusaders knowing they've been in the game and we've took them as far as we can.
Yeah. Potsy, Crusaders, up until they played Glentoran there last weekend, have been in a decent run of form. And you'll obviously be looking to continue that. What would be your... Listen, it's straight up, there's no point beating around the bush. You're obviously going to be confident going into that there, but would you be wary at the same time?
Yes. What I mean by that is I said it with regards to the Larne game. I was talking about Portadown. All the pressure's on us. Johnny's right. All you Portadown have to do is go up there and give a good account of themselves and put their bodies on the line, give 100%. There'll be a couple of players, Michael Ruddy, for example, with the point of proof, coming back to Seaview. Little things like that. Like, you look back to the first game, 4-0. I think we had 5 chances. So it's not like we ripped Portadown apart. We were just very, very clinical with the chances that we did have. I said to you that time of the night, it didn't feel like a 4-0 game. Other people might disagree with me and think it did, but I personally didn't think it was a 4-0 game. I didn't think we were overly impressive, and I didn't think Portadown were overly poor. I think once the first goal went in, the heads dropped a little bit, and then it was 2-0 before you could know. 3-0, 4-0, and all of a sudden it looks like a massacre, when I felt, in fact, it was quite, I wouldn't say an even game, but certainly it didn't feel and come across like a 4-0 game. Like I said, pressure's all on us. We have to be putting a run together. We have to be picking up points while other teams in the top 6 play each other. And with respect to Portadown, I expect to come out against Portadown and to put in a performance and to put in a shift and to come out with 3 points, and I'd be frustrated if we didn't, but it leaves us open nicely to our return to Shamrock Park in February, where we will drop points as we famously seem to continuously do, as is our custom. But certainly at Seaview, I would like to ensure that we leave with 3 points, and for us I think it'll be no complacency, go out and win the game.
Are you pleased with Crusaders' season so far?
Yeah, I think people get carried away. Coleraine, I've used them as an example often. Last year they had a terrible start and they were in a title race by January, February. I know they fell away towards the end. They gave themselves too much to do. This season they lost their first 2 games. People are writing them off. They're sitting second. They're flying. Every team is going to mess up and every team is going to drop points. And the imperative thing is, with our games at hand, we win those, we'll be second. Obviously there's going to be games played that's going to confuse that statistic, but if we played our game at hand and no other team played, we'd go second if we won. So we got to look at things like that and say, what, if you're in and around the top of the table coming into Christmas, it's good. I think people get carried away with results. Glentoran last weekend was a very even game. It was decided by a free kick. Should O'Rourke have stopped the ball? Probably. Should Tuffy have done better? Probably. It was a pretty even game, so not something I'm overly concerned about. We went to Larne. We could have been 2-0 up at half-time, didn't take our chances and conceded a goal, which I think Sean O'Neill would probably admit himself he should have done better with. I'm not overly worried about Crusaders. I'm happy enough with what we're doing so far. I just think it's imperative that we put a bit of a run together against the teams at the bottom half of the table, which does include a couple of difficult fixtures, Glenavon away, which we don't seem to enjoy, and Ballymena away, which is hit or miss. We seem to go up there and win sometimes, other times go up there and drop points. So I just think it's important for us just to keep winning. Don't really look at other teams. Don't look at what's going on. Don't even look at the league table. Just take a game at a time. See where we are by January and go from there.
Yeah. Who's your tip to win the league? Too early.
But yeah, it is too early. When you look at where 6th is to 1st, 7 points, it's way too early. Like I said, people are writing off Coleraine after 2 games. Lunatics, absolute lunatics. You look at Glentoran, Mad Mick's nuts. Mad Mick is on the verge of the sack. Mad Mick this, Mad Mick that. They're right in the middle of the title race. They're above Linfield. And the cliche is you finish above Linfield, you win the league. So I think long way to go. I think anything could happen. I think I like the look of Coleraine. I just don't know if they have enough about them to sustain it all the way through. But I like the look of Colerane's team this season, but hopefully we can be there or thereabouts.
Actually, you know what? Speaking of gripes, and you said about Coleraine there, they were on the TV last week. Did any of you watch the match between them and Larne? Jonny, you mentioned that at Warren Point were in their away kit like most of last season. Why were Larne playing in black away to Coleraine last Friday night? Why are they not playing in red? I just can't have that. It's a kit crime. Just no. But anyway, that's me. Right, we're going to have to wrap it up here. Actually, before we wrap it up, I had Dave on yesterday. So our good friend, Gary McNally, I'm going to give you a shout out here, is demanding the return of the prototype shirt from a couple of years ago. So I thought I'd wear it tonight one last time. And so, hi, Gary. You'll get your shirt back soon because he's chasing Dave as well for his. So yeah, we'll get you those back. But yes, we'll wrap up the show here. Jonny, thanks very much for coming on. Fingers crossed for 2 Portadown victories over the next 2 games. And Potty, thanks as always, and I hope you're very unhappy next Tuesday night.
Well, thanks for having me on, and I hope you have a Portadown victory at the weekend and a horrible Tuesday evening.
Do you know what? A lot of people would probably take 3 points out of the next 6 anyway.
I was going to say I would gladly take that, Patsy, to be honest with you.
Listen, as always, thanks to everyone that watches and listens. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the We Are Ports TV YouTube channel. And you can check us out on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. And like I said, leave us a wee review. It'll be greatly appreciated. I somehow have a feeling that we might get some bad reviews from probably Glenavon, Glentoran, and Larne fans, but hey ho, we don't care. Anyway, right. Cheers, folks.
See you next time.